At what was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of my life, my long-awaited graduation party, I arrived at the venue filled with excitement, only for my aunt to stop me at the door and tell me to wait outside because, in her words, the celebration was just for close family, leaving me shocked, hurt, and wondering why I was being excluded from my own event. Okay, listen, because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just a story about a party. It's about a lifetime of feeling invisible, a betrayal that cut deeper than any knife, and the moment I finally understood what true family actually looks like. My name is Hannah Williams, and I'm 25 years old. I stood there, right outside the fancy, exclusive restaurant, still in my cap and gown, diploma tucked under my arm. Inside I could hear the laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses. My own graduation party. And then I looked at my Aunt Patricia, her thin smile like a razor blade. "I'm sorry, Hannah," she said, just like that. "The party is just for close family right now." My heart didn't just sink, it shattered. Everyone was in there. Everyone. Except me. The graduate. Growing up, life with my mom, Janet Williams, meant learning about sacrifice. Early. My dad walked out when I was 3, and after that, Mom became my everything, my provider, my protector, my loudest cheerleader. She worked 3 jobs, sometimes more, just to keep a roof over our heads. Waitressing in the mornings, administrative work during the day, night shifts at a convenience store on weekends. She was bone-tired, always. But somehow she never, ever missed helping me with my homework, or showing up to every single school event. Education, she'd tell me, her eyes heavy but her smile unwavering, is the one thing no one can ever take from you, Hannah. Your brain is your ticket to freedom. Our tiny, 2-bedroom apartment, in a neighborhood no one really aspired to live in, became our fortress. While other kids were getting new clothes, the latest toys, I was treasuring trips to the public library, or poring over hand-me-down books. My mom made sure I never felt poor. Even when the electricity got shut off, she'd turn it into an adventure, flashlights and shadow puppets, making me laugh. Extended family? That was a whole different story. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, she married into money. And oh, she never let us forget it. Their Christmas cards were these glossy, perfect family portraits, taken on exotic vacations, everyone in matching outfits. When they hosted family gatherings at their sprawling suburban mansion, we were sometimes invited, but we always felt like outsiders. My cousins, Emma, Jake, and Tyler, they had everything I didn't. Private schools, summer camps, parents who actually showed up to their soccer games and dance recitals. "Why doesn't Aunt Patricia like us?" I asked my mom once, after a particularly uncomfortable Thanksgiving where my aunt had openly commented on my thrift store dress. Mom just squeezed my hand. "Some people measure worth by what you have, Hannah, not who you are. That's their loss." Despite that strained dynamic, I excelled in school. It became my refuge, a place where effort actually equaled results. By high school, I was taking all AP classes, working part-time at a local pharmacy. The pharmacist there, Dr. Santiago, he became a mentor. He planted the seed of medical school in my mind. "You have a natural talent for remembering medication interactions," he told me. "And more importantly, you care about the people behind the prescriptions. That's what makes a good doctor." The dream of becoming a physician felt impossible, given our financial situation. But my mother? She wouldn't hear of limitations. She helped me research scholarships, dragged me to college fairs, spent hours helping me perfect my application essays. When acceptance letters started rolling in, including a partial scholarship offer from State University, we actually danced around our tiny kitchen. "You're going to be Dr. Williams someday," Mom said, tears in her eyes. I always knew it. College was a relentless balancing act: academics, work-study jobs, student loans. I lived off campus with 3 roommates to save money, survived on ramen, and learned to function on minimal sleep. But I thrived academically, Dean's List every semester, securing research positions that strengthened my medical school applications. Then, during my senior year, came the diagnosis that changed everything. My mom's persistent cough and fatigue. It wasn't just overwork. It was stage 4 lung cancer. Suddenly, I was splitting my time between classes and the oncology ward, taking notes during chemotherapy sessions the way Mom had once reviewed my homework. "Don't you dare pause your applications," she insisted from her hospital bed. "My daughter is going to be a doctor." I was accepted to medical school with a scholarship, but Mom's condition deteriorated so fast. 6 months after her diagnosis, I held her hand as she took her final breath. The woman who had given everything to ensure my success wouldn't see me achieve it. Grief nearly derailed me. I considered deferring admission, but my mother's voice in my head wouldn't allow it. Instead, I channeled my pain into purpose, approaching medical school with a determination that bordered on obsession. Mom's insurance policy covered her funeral, and left just enough for a small down payment on a studio apartment near campus. The next 4 years were a blur. Anatomy labs, clinical rotations, board exams, and barely suppressed grief. My extended family? They mostly vanished after Mom's funeral. Aunt Patricia sent a generic sympathy card with a $50 check that bounced when I tried to deposit it. My cousins occasionally texted on holidays, but our connection was dead. I made a few close friends in my program, especially my study partner Megan, who became the sister I never had. But mostly, I just poured myself into becoming the doctor my mother had envisioned. In my final year, I was awarded the Preston Memorial Scholarship for emerging physicians dedicated to underserved communities. It covered my remaining tuition and even gave me a stipend. As graduation approached, I sent announcements to my extended family, more out of obligation than expectation. To my complete surprise, Aunt Patricia called. "We're so proud of you, Hannah," she said, her voice dripping with an enthusiasm I'd never heard directed at me before. "The family wants to throw you a proper graduation party. You're the doctor in the family." I was suspicious, but hopeful. Maybe my achievement had finally earned their respect. Maybe, just maybe, my mother's sister was actually reaching out, trying to build a connection that would have mattered so much to Mom. "That sounds wonderful," I replied cautiously. "Leave everything to me," Patricia assured me. "Just focus on your graduation ceremony. This will be a celebration worthy of Dr. Williams." For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel excited about family. Perhaps this was a turning point, a chance to heal old wounds, to create new connections. I even splurged on a new dress to wear under my graduation gown, wanting to look my best for this new chapter. The actual graduation ceremony earlier that day had been bittersweet. Sitting among my peers in the university auditorium, I felt my mother's absence like a physical pain. When Hannah Janet Williams was called, I walked across the stage to accept my diploma, scanning the audience out of habit, even though I knew no family was there. Patricia had explained they'd all meet me at the restaurant instead. I took selfies with friends after the ceremony, trying to capture the moment for myself. "Your mom would be so proud," my advisor said, hugging me tightly. "I know," I replied, believing it with all my heart. "She's the reason I'm here." Little did I know then that the true test of my strength wouldn't be making it through medical school without my mother. It would be facing my family's continued rejection on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. The day of graduation arrived with perfect early summer weather. Sunshine streamed through my apartment windows as I prepared for the ceremony. After 4 years of grueling studies, sleepless nights, and moments of crushing doubt where I'd wondered if I could really do this without my mom, I had made it. Dr. Hannah Williams. The thought still felt surreal. I spent extra time getting ready that morning, knowing this was a day my mother had dreamed about. My dress was a splurge, a knee-length navy blue number with subtle lace detailing that I'd saved for weeks to afford. Professional, but still special. I curled my hair, applied makeup carefully, wanting to look polished in the photos that would commemorate this milestone. "Mom would love this," I whispered to my reflection, touching the small pendant containing a tiny photo of her that I wore around my neck. It was my way of keeping her close during the ceremony. Throughout the graduation proceedings, I kept thinking about the party afterward. Aunt Patricia had texted me specific details the night before. "Reservations at the Garland at 7 p.m. We have the private room in the back. Everyone's so excited to celebrate you." The Garland was one of the most upscale restaurants in town, a place I'd never been able to afford on a student budget. The fact that my aunt had chosen such a venue seemed like a genuine effort to make this special. Despite our history, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe my achievement had finally bridged the gap between us. After the ceremony, I received congratulatory texts from several cousins. "Can't wait to see you tonight," from Jake. "So proud of you, see you at the Garland," from Emma. "Doctor in the family. Save me some cake," from Tyler. Each message fed my growing optimism. Maybe things really would be different now. I stopped home briefly to freshen up, keeping my graduation gown and cap for the party, since several relatives had mentioned wanting photos. The drive to the garland took 15 minutes, and I rehearsed gracious responses to congratulations in my head. The restaurant was even more impressive than I'd imagined, a converted historic mansion with a grand entrance, valet parking, and elegant landscaping. I spotted several family members' cars in the parking lot and felt a flutter of excitement. As I approached the entrance, still in my cap and gown, diploma case tucked under my arm, I could hear music and laughter spilling out. The hostess smiled at me. "Welcome to the Garland. Do you have a reservation?" "I'm here for the Williams party," I explained. "I believe they have the private room." Her expression brightened with recognition. "Oh yes. They're all set up in the back. It looks wonderful. Let me get someone to show you. Hannah, there you are." I turned to see Aunt Patricia approaching from the direction of the private room. She was impeccably dressed, as always, in an expensive-looking silk pantsuit. Her salon-perfect hair didn't move an inch. Something about her expression made my stomach tighten instinctively. "I'll take it from here," she told the hostess, before turning to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hannah dear, you look nice." The slight pause before nice wasn't lost on me, but I pushed aside the familiar feeling of being judged. "Thank you for organizing this, Aunt Patricia. The restaurant is beautiful." She glanced around, as though making sure no one could overhear us. "About that, we're just getting everything situated inside. Would you mind waiting out here for a few minutes? Just until we're ready?" I blinked in confusion. "Ready? But I thought, it's just for close family right now," she said firmly, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her sleeve. "We have some things to discuss before the actual celebration." "Close family?" I repeated, the words not making sense. "But I am family. And isn't this party supposed to be for me?" Aunt Patricia's expression tightened. "Of course it is, Hannah. Don't be dramatic. We just need a few minutes to finalize some things. You understand." As we stood in the entryway, I could see past her into the private room. Through the partially open door, I glimpsed tables beautifully decorated with flowers and balloons. A banner reading, "Congratulations, Dr. Williams," hung on the far wall. And the room was full of people. Not just immediate family, but distant relatives I barely recognized, and family friends I hadn't seen in years. Everyone was inside. Except me. A couple entered the restaurant behind me, glancing curiously at my cap and gown as they passed. The woman smiled. "Congratulations on your graduation." "Thank you," I managed, my voice sounding far away even to my own ears. Aunt Patricia looked annoyed by the interruption. "Just wait here. Someone will come get you when we're ready." She turned and walked back toward the private room without waiting for my response. Through the door, I caught a glimpse of my cousins, my uncle, and at least 20 other people, all chatting, holding champagne flutes. No one appeared to be getting things ready. They were already in full celebration mode. I stood frozen in the entryway, clutching my diploma case so tightly my knuckles turned white. The reality of the situation slowly sank in. This was allegedly my graduation party, yet I was the only one not allowed inside. The hostess gave me a sympathetic look before busying herself with menus, clearly uncomfortable. My chest tightened as embarrassment washed over me. Memories from childhood flooded back, being seated at the kids' table long after my cousins had graduated to eating with the adults, receiving obviously re-gifted presents at Christmas while my cousins unwrapped the latest gaming systems, being introduced as Janet's daughter, rather than by my name. I had thought earning my medical degree would finally make me worthy in their eyes. Standing in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I realized nothing had changed. I was still the outsider, still not quite good enough to be part of the close family. The same feeling of inadequacy that had haunted me throughout childhood crept up my spine. Was there something fundamentally unlovable about me? Something that made me less deserving of inclusion than my cousins? Logically, I knew this was their issue, not mine. But logic does little to soothe the pain of rejection. Especially from people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. I found myself backing toward the door, nearly bumping into another arriving guest. My hands trembled, and my face burned with humiliation. Part of me wanted to push past Aunt Patricia, march into that room, and demand the recognition I'd earned. But another part, the little girl who had learned early to expect disappointment from everyone except her mother, just wanted to disappear. "Is everything okay, miss?" the hostess asked, concern evident in her voice. I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up, and I felt dangerously close to tears. The celebration sounds from the private room seemed to grow louder, mocking me. Someone inside laughed, a carefree sound that pierced me like a physical pain. For a moment, I stood suspended between fight and flight, uncertain which instinct would win. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Megan. How's the family party going? Sending you strength. Megan. Megan, who had seen me through panic attacks before exams. Megan, who had helped me when I cried on the anniversaries of my mother's death. Megan, who was more family to me than anyone in that private room. That text was the lifeline I needed to pull myself back from the edge of public breakdown. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and made a decision. I would not beg for a place at my own celebration. 20 minutes passed as I stood awkwardly in the restaurant's lobby. Each minute stretched painfully, marked by curious glances from arriving diners and increasingly sympathetic looks from the hostess, who had offered me water twice. I kept checking my phone, half hoping for a text saying I could come in, half considering calling an Uber to escape this humiliation. Are you waiting for your party, honey? An elderly woman asked as she and her husband were leaving. Do you need help finding them? I forced a smile. No, thank you. They know I'm here. That was the worst part. They knew exactly where I was. Just outside the door, excluded from my own graduation celebration. I texted Megan. You won't believe this. Standing outside my own party. Aunt Patricia said, it's just for close family right now. Her response was immediate. WTF? That's your party. Want me to come down there? Not yet. Just needed to vent. I scrolled through old photos on my phone to distract myself, landing on one from my 12th birthday. Mom had saved for months to throw me a small party at the local skating rink. She'd invited my entire class, plus extended family. Only 2 classmates showed up. No family came at all. Later, we learned Aunt Patricia had hosted a pool party for Emma that same day, despite Mom specifically mentioning my birthday when summer plans were being discussed at a family dinner. When confronted, Aunt Patricia had simply said, well, Emma's friends were already counting on this date. I'm sure Hannah understands. I hadn't understood. Not really. Mom had tried to make it special anyway, skating with me and my 2 friends, buying an ice cream cake, and taking silly photo booth pictures that I still treasured. But I remembered crying that night, asking Mom what was wrong with me that made my own family not want to celebrate me. Another memory surfaced, my high school graduation. Mom had been so proud, cheering loudly when my name was called as I graduated at the top of my class. We had planned a small celebration dinner afterward, inviting Aunt Patricia's family and a few other relatives. Only Uncle Robert had shown up, bringing a card signed by everyone else, claiming various last-minute conflicts. Later that week, social media revealed the truth. They had all attended a baseball game together instead. My thoughts were interrupted by the restaurant door opening. My cousin Jake stepped out, looking incredibly uncomfortable. Hey, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. Sorry about the wait. I crossed my arms. What's going on, Jake? Why am I standing out here while everyone else is inside? He shifted his weight, looking exactly like he had when we were kids and he was lying about who broke Grandma's vase. Aunt Patricia is just organizing a surprise. You know how she is about having everything perfect. A surprise? At my graduation party? That I'm not allowed to attend? Jake winced. It's not like that. She just wants to make an announcement before you come in. It'll just be a few more minutes. Through the door behind him, I could see people eating appetizers and drinking champagne. Someone was taking group photos. This didn't look like preparation for a surprise. It looked like a party in full swing. Jake, be honest with me. What's really happening? He finally looked at me, guilt written across his features. Look, I don't agree with it, okay? I told Mom this was messed up, but you know how she gets. How she gets about what? He lowered his voice. She's making this big speech about how proud the family is to have a doctor now, and how we've all supported you through medical school. Some people from Dad's firm are here, important clients. She's kind of making it seem like they paid for your education. The audacity was breathtaking. They didn't give me a dime, Jake. Your mom sent me a sympathy card when my mother died with a check that bounced. None of you even came to my white coat ceremony. Jake had the decency to look ashamed. I know. I should have been there. It's just, you know how it is. I didn't know. I had always been the family obligation, not a true member of their circle. The poor relation they occasionally remembered out of duty, not love. I'm sorry, Hannah. I really am proud of you, Jake said, sounding sincere for the first time. I should get back inside before Mom notices I'm gone. As he retreated, I felt the hurt transform into something hotter and sharper. Anger. How dare they use my accomplishment as social currency while excluding me from the celebration? How dare Aunt Patricia pretend she had anything to do with my success? I thought about my mother, who had worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities, who had helped me study for the MCAT while undergoing chemotherapy, who had made me promise on her deathbed to finish what we started. Don't let anything stop you, she had whispered, her hand frail in mine. And don't let anyone make you feel small. You're meant for big things, Hannah. Standing outside that restaurant in my cap and gown, I felt her absence like a physical ache. Mom would have stormed into that room and demanded respect for her daughter. But Mom wasn't here. It was just me. And I had a choice to make. My phone buzzed again with a text from Megan. What's the address? I'm coming. In that moment, I realized something important. Family wasn't defined by blood. It was defined by who showed up for you, who celebrated your victories and helped you through defeats. By that definition, Aunt Patricia and most of the people in that room weren't my family at all. I looked through the glass door at the celebration happening without me. Through the window, I could see Aunt Patricia at the center of attention, gesturing dramatically as she spoke to a group of well-dressed strangers. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. It was about Aunt Patricia's desire to associate herself with my achievement without having to acknowledge her failure to support me when it actually mattered. It was about appearance, not reality. About the story she wanted to tell, not the truth of what had happened. The realization didn't lessen the hurt, but it clarified something for me. I was done waiting for approval from people who had no intention of ever truly giving it. I was done making myself small to fit into spaces where I wasn't genuinely wanted. I was my mother's daughter, and it was time I stood up for myself the way she always had for me. After nearly 40 minutes of standing in the lobby, I had become part of the restaurant's decor. The hostess had stopped asking if I needed anything, and new arrivals no longer gave me curious glances. I was just a woman in graduation regalia, eternally waiting. Through the partially open door to the private room, I could see the celebration continuing without me. A waiter passed by, carrying a tray of elegant desserts, little chocolate things topped with what looked like edible gold. Mom would have found that ridiculous. Food you wear, not eat, she would have joked. I shifted position to get a better view and froze when I saw Aunt Patricia standing at the head of the main table, champagne glass raised. The room quieted as she began to speak, her voice carrying clearly to where I stood. As I was saying, our family has always valued education above all else, she proclaimed. When my dear sister Janet passed, Robert and I promised we would ensure Hannah completed her journey to becoming a doctor. It wasn't easy, but family takes care of family. The blatant lie knocked the air from my lungs. Not only had they provided no support, but Aunt Patricia had actively discouraged me from wasting money on more school, after Mom died, suggesting I should get a real job, instead of pursuing medicine. And now, she continued, we're so proud to celebrate Dr. Hannah Williams, the physician in our family. Though she's running fashionably late today. Light laughter rippled through the room. We couldn't be prouder of her accomplishment, and our part in it. I must have made some sound, because the hostess glanced over with concern. Inside the room, someone had placed a large portrait of me in my white coat on an easel. It was my official medical school photo, which I had included in the graduation announcements I'd sent out. Next to it was a smaller framed photo of my mother, the same one I kept on my nightstand. The sight of Mom's image being used in this charade was the final straw. As I watched, a waiter approached my aunt and whispered something. Her eyes darted toward the door, toward me, and her expression tightened. She nodded and continued her speech as if nothing had happened. Moments later, the waiter slipped out to the lobby and approached me cautiously. Excuse me, Miss Williams? I believe you're the guest of honor? I nodded beyond words. Your aunt asked me to check if you were still waiting. He seemed uncomfortable. She said to tell you they're almost ready for you. Almost ready? After 45 minutes at my own graduation party? How many people are in there? I asked. He glanced back at the room. About 50, I think. It's quite a turnout. 50 people celebrating an achievement they had nothing to do with, while the actual graduates stood outside like an unwanted delivery. I thought about my options. I could continue waiting, eventually be allowed in, and pretend none of this had happened. I could make a scene, barge in, and call out Aunt Patricia's lies. Or I could leave quietly and let them continue their farce without me. What would serve my dignity best? What would honor my mother's memory and the values she had instilled in me? Mom had always emphasized taking the high road, but she had also taught me that self-respect was non-negotiable. Never beg for a seat at a table where you're not valued, she had told me once. Build your own table instead. As I stood there deliberating, I saw through the door as a waiter brought out a large cake decorated with, "Congratulations, Dr. Williams," in elegant script. Aunt Patricia was positioning herself next to it, clearly planning to be in all the photos. My cousin Emma was adjusting the banner, making sure it would be visible in pictures. They were creating a narrative that erased my struggle, my mother's sacrifice, and their own absence during the hardest years of my life. They were rewriting history to cast themselves as the supportive, generous family they had never actually been. The realization hit me with stunning clarity. Nothing I could say or do would change who they fundamentally were. No achievement of mine would ever be enough to make them truly accept me. I could become Surgeon General, and Aunt Patricia would still find a way to make me wait outside my own celebration while she took credit for my success. I looked down at my graduation gown, the academic regalia I had worked so hard to earn the right to wear. The blue and gold colors of my university, the honor cord signifying graduating with distinction. This was mine. My accomplishment. My moment. And I refused to let it be hijacked by people who didn't deserve to share in it. With sudden, cold resolve, I began unfastening the gown. I slipped it off, followed by the cap, and carefully folded them over my arm, along with my diploma case. The hostess watched curiously as I squared my shoulders and took a deep breath. I walked to the door of the private room and pushed it open just enough to catch Aunt Patricia's eye. The conversation nearest the door faltered as people noticed me standing there. My aunt's smile flickered for just a moment before she recovered. "There she is!" she exclaimed, though not quite loud enough to interrupt the conversations happening farther back in the room. "We're almost ready for your grand entrance, dear." I met her gaze steadily. "No need, Aunt Patricia. I can see you're all having a wonderful time celebrating something. But since this is clearly not actually about me, I'll leave you to it." Her smile hardened. "Don't be ridiculous, Hannah. Of course this is about you. We're all here to celebrate you." "Really? Because I've been standing outside for nearly an hour while you told everyone how you supported me through medical school, which is interesting since I haven't seen you since Mom's funeral 4 years ago." A few nearby conversations stopped as people tuned into our exchange. Aunt Patricia's eyes darted around nervously. "This isn't the time or place for dramatics," she hissed. "We can discuss any misunderstandings later." I shook my head. "There's no misunderstanding. You wanted the social capital of having a doctor in the family without having to actually support me becoming one. You wanted the party without the person." Message received, loud and clear. I held up my folded gown and cap. "I'll take these and my actual achievements elsewhere. Guess I'll celebrate with people who were actually there for me during the journey." The shocked silence that followed was deeply satisfying. For once, Aunt Patricia seemed at a loss for words. My cousin Jake half rose from his seat, looking conflicted, while Emma and Tyler stared open-mouthed. "Hannah, wait." Uncle Robert started. But I was already turning away. As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt a curious mixture of emotions. Hurt and anger, yes, but also a surprising lightness. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to the family dynamics that had made me feel inadequate for as long as I could remember. I had refused to accept scraps of attention when I deserved a full place at the table. Outside in the warm evening air, I took a deep breath and texted Megan. "I'm leaving. Can I come over?" Her response was immediate. "Already setting up. Bring ice." I smiled through the tears that had finally escaped. My chosen family might be smaller, but it was real. And that was worth celebrating. I made it exactly 3 blocks from the Garland before pulling into a gas station parking lot, unable to see through my tears. The full weight of what had just happened crashed over me like a wave. I sat behind the wheel, clutching my carefully folded graduation gown, and sobbed. Deep, body-shaking sobs that came from a place of accumulated grief. I cried for my mother, who should have been there. for the family support I had never received, and for the little girl inside me who still craved validation from people who would never give it. When the initial storm passed, I called Megan, my voice still thick with emotion. They're throwing a party for me that I'm not allowed to attend. I explained, the absurdity of it hitting me anew. Patricia is literally taking credit for putting me through medical school. Those absolute trash humans. Megan fumed. I knew your aunt was bad, but this is another level. I wiped my eyes, smudging my carefully applied makeup. I don't know why I'm even surprised. This is just more of the same, isn't it? They've always treated me like this. Which is why you're better off without them, she said. Come over now. I've already texted the group. What group? The Real Celebration Committee, she said with determination in her voice. Just get ice and your butt over here. By the time I arrived at Megan's apartment 20 minutes later, my phone was buzzing constantly. Multiple text messages from Jake. That was messed up. I'm sorry. Mom is trying to spin it like you had a meltdown. Are you okay? Where are you? And surprisingly, one from Uncle Robert. Your mother would be ashamed of how you were treated today. I should have spoken up sooner. This isn't right. I silenced my phone and focused on climbing the stairs to Megan's third-floor apartment, ice bag in one hand, graduation regalia and diploma in the other. When she opened the door, I was greeted by the sound of celebratory music and the sight of hastily hung decorations, a handwritten, "Congrats, Dr. Hannah," banner stretched across her living room, and blue and gold balloons taped to the walls. But more surprising were the people gathered there: Dr. Santiago from the pharmacy where I had worked in high school, my entire study group from medical school, 2 favorite professors, and several friends from my clinical rotations. At least 15 people, all smiling and cheering as I entered. Surprise, Megan said, hugging me tightly. The real celebration, with people who actually give a damn about you. I stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed by this spontaneous outpouring of support. How did you? Group text, she said, beaming. Everyone dropped what they were doing. That's what real family does. Dr. Santiago approached, gray hair now where there had once been black, but his kind eyes unchanged. I wouldn't have missed celebrating this milestone with you, Hannah. I still remember the teenager who asked me 1,000 questions about drug interactions. I knew then you'd make an exceptional doctor. My anatomy professor, Dr. Chin, raised a glass. To Dr. Williams, one of the most dedicated students I've had the pleasure of teaching. Your mother would be bursting with pride. The genuine warmth in that room was like stepping into sunshine after years in shadow. These people had actually been part of my journey. They had witnessed my struggles and successes, had offered help when I needed it, had celebrated my incremental victories along the way. As we crowded into Megan's small apartment, sharing impromptu toasts and stories, my phone continued to buzz. I finally checked it to find social media notifications. My cousins and other family members had begun posting congratulatory messages publicly. So proud of my brilliant cousin Dr. Hannah Williams. #FamilyPride #DrFamily. From Emma, who had barely spoken 10 words to me in the past 4 years. Major respect for my cousin completing medical school despite incredible challenges. #Inspiration. From Tyler, who had never once checked on me after Mom died. The duplicity was staggering. They were crafting a public narrative of family support, while the reality couldn't have been more different. I showed Megan, who rolled her eyes dramatically. Classic. They're damage controlling. Bet Aunt Patricia is making them post that stuff. Before I could respond, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. Is this Hannah Williams? A woman's voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Marjorie, the events manager at the Garland. I wanted to personally apologize for what happened this evening. Your situation was brought to my attention by several of our staff who were very concerned. I stepped into Megan's bedroom for privacy. Oh, thank you, but it wasn't the restaurant's fault. Nevertheless, what happened was unacceptable. I've worked here for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like it. She paused. I should tell you that shortly after you left, quite a scene developed. Several people walked out, including an older gentleman who I believe was your uncle. My heart skipped. Uncle Robert left? Yes, and he was quite vocal about his disapproval. 2 younger men followed him. They appeared to be around your age. Jake and Tyler. That was unexpected. The party broke up rather quickly after that. Marjorie continued. Your aunt tried to continue as if nothing had happened, but it was awkward, to say the least. A small, petty part of me was gratified to hear that my departure had disrupted that carefully orchestrated event. But mostly, I was shocked that Uncle Robert and my cousins had actually taken a stand. I appreciate you letting me know, I told her. There's one more thing, she added. The gentleman, your uncle, settled the bill in full, but left instructions that the cake was to be delivered to you. He left your address with us. Would tomorrow morning be acceptable? I gave her Megan's address instead, thanked her, and returned to the celebration in the living room with a strange feeling of vindication. At least some of my family had recognized the injustice. As the evening progressed, I received 3 more calls from Uncle Robert, which I let go to voicemail, not ready to talk. But I did listen to his messages. Hannah, it's Uncle Robert. What happened tonight was inexcusable. Patricia had no right to treat you that way, especially not on your graduation day. I should have put a stop to it immediately. Please call me back when you can. It's me again. I've left the party. So have Jake and Tyler. We're at the diner on Main if you want to join us. No pressure, but the door is open. Just checking if you're okay. I understand if you don't want to talk right now. Just know that I'm truly sorry, and I'd like to make it right if you'll give me the chance. I showed the messages to Megan, who had been my rock through every medical school crisis. What do you think? I asked her. Should I call him back? She considered it seriously. He's making an effort. That's more than can be said for the rest of them. Maybe hear him out, but set boundaries. You don't owe anyone automatic forgiveness. I nodded, feeling a new sense of empowerment. For too long, I had accepted whatever scraps of family connection were thrown my way. But standing up for myself at the restaurant had shifted something fundamental. I deserved better. And for the first time, I truly believed it. My phone chimed with a text from Jake. I messed up big time. Should have stood up for you right away. Left with Dad and Tyler. Can we talk tomorrow? The celebration around me continued. Genuine, warm, and supportive. These people had shown up for me when it counted. They were celebrating my achievement, not using it for their own social capital. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Dr. Santiago raised his glass again. I propose another toast. Not just to Hannah's achievement, but to her character. Janet raised a daughter with integrity, persistence, and compassion. Those qualities will make you an exceptional physician. As everyone clinked glasses, my anatomy lab partner Marcus called out. Speech from the doctor. Surrounded by people who actually cared about me, I found my voice. I couldn't have done this without all of you. Medical school is impossible to get through alone. And each of you helped me in ways you might not even realize. My voice caught. My mom used to say that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. All of you showed up, not just today, but throughout this journey. I raised my glass, feeling a bittersweet mixture of grief and gratitude. To my mom, who started me on this path. And to all of you, my chosen family, who helped me finish it. As tears erupted, I felt my phone buzz again with another text. This one from an unexpected source, and Patricia. Your behavior tonight was embarrassing and childish. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You've always had a flair for drama, just like your mother. I showed it to Megan, who gasped in outrage. But instead of the hurt I might have felt before, I found myself laughing. The message was so transparently manipulative, so clearly designed to make me question my own reality, that it had lost its power. What are you going to do? Megan asked. I deleted the message without responding and put my phone away. I'm going to celebrate becoming a doctor with people who are actually happy for me. The rest can wait until tomorrow. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Not of grief for my mother, which would always be part of me, but of the desperate need for approval from people who would never freely give it. I had built my own table, just as Mom had advised, and it was filled with people who genuinely cared. That night, surrounded by genuine support and celebration, I finally understood that I hadn't lost family when my mother died. I had simply needed to recognize the family I already had. The morning after graduation dawned bright and clear, both outside and within me. I woke on Megan's couch to the smell of coffee and the gentle clattering of breakfast preparation. My head ached slightly from the champagne we'd consumed during our impromptu celebration. But the emotional hangover I'd expected was surprisingly absent. In its place was a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. "Morning, doctor," Megan said, handing me a steaming mug. "How's it feel to be both a doctor and an official family rebel?" I laughed, sitting up and gratefully accepting the coffee. "Surprisingly good. Though I have about 20 missed calls to deal with." My phone had indeed been lighting up since dawn, messages from Uncle Robert, Jake, Tyler, and even Emma. Conspicuously absent was any communication from Aunt Patricia beyond her passive-aggressive text from the night before. I scrolled through them while sipping my coffee, trying to decide my next move. "The cake's being delivered at 10, I reminded Megan. "Yes. Stolen graduation cake for breakfast. I'm here for this level of petty." Around 9:30, while we were still in pajamas discussing whether to respond to any of the messages, an unexpected knock came at the door. Megan peeked through the peephole and turned to me with wide eyes. "It's your Aunt Patricia," she whispered. "And she does not look happy." My stomach dropped. I hadn't given the Garland Megan's address. Only Uncle Robert had that information. He must have told his wife. "You don't have to see her," Megan said firmly. "I can tell her to leave." I considered this for a moment. Running away or hiding would only reinforce the dynamic that had existed all my life. Aunt Patricia as the authority figure, me as the chastened child. It was time to change that pattern. "No," I decided, standing up. "I'll talk to her. But here. On my terms." I quickly ran a brush through my hair and straightened my wrinkled clothes from the day before. Not ideal, but this wasn't about appearances anymore. When I opened the door, Aunt Patricia stood there in another impeccable outfit, her handbag clutched tightly against her body like armor. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, her entire posture radiating disapproval. "May I come in?" she asked stiffly. "You can say whatever you came to say from there," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Her eyes narrowed at this defiance. "This isn't a conversation for hallways, Hannah. I raised you better than that. Actually, you didn't raise me at all. My mother did. And she taught me that respect is earned, not automatically granted based on family title." Aunt Patricia flinched, almost imperceptibly. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Not anger, but something more complex. "Fine," she said after a pause. "I came to tell you that your behavior yesterday was unacceptable. Do you have any idea how much that party cost? How many important connections were there specifically to meet you? You embarrassed the entire family." I leaned against the doorframe, considering her words. "That's interesting because from where I was standing, outside my own party, it seemed like the event was more about you than me. You were taking credit for supporting me through medical school when we both know that's not true. We are family," she insisted. "Your accomplishments reflect on all of us." "Family?" I repeated the word, bitter on my tongue. Where was this family when Mom was dying? Where was this family when I was working 3 jobs to make rent during my first year of medical school? Where were you, Aunt Patricia, when I needed actual support, not a performative party after I'd already succeeded? She adjusted her handbag, clearly uncomfortable. Your mother chose her path. She always had to do everything her own way. Even when we offered help. This blatant revision of history ignited something in me. What help? When Mom worked herself to exhaustion providing for me because her family, your family, decided she wasn't worth supporting when she became a single mother? You all judged her, excluded her, made her feel less than. And then you did the same to me. "That's not true," she protested. But her voice lacked conviction. "It is true. And you know what's sad? I spent years thinking if I just achieved enough, if I just became successful enough, you would finally accept me. But standing outside that restaurant yesterday, I realized it would never be enough. The problem was never me. It was you." Aunt Patricia's carefully maintained facade cracked slightly. "You don't understand. Things were complicated with your mother and me." "Then help me understand," I challenged. "Because from my perspective, you've treated me like an unwanted obligation my entire life." She was silent for a long moment, staring past me into the apartment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter. "Your mother was always the smart one. The pretty one. The one everyone adored. I was the practical one, the responsible one. I did everything right, married well, maintained the family connections, upheld our social standing. Janet threw it all away for your father, who everyone knew was unreliable." I stared at her, realization dawning. You were jealous of her. I was concerned. She corrected quickly, but we both heard the lie. When he left and she struggled, I thought she would finally admit she had made a mistake, that she needed our help, my help. But she never did. She was too proud. She was too hurt. I countered, by her family's judgment, by her conditional love. Aunt Patricia looked away. When she got sick, I didn't know how bad it was. She didn't tell me until it was advanced. By then, I finished for her. By then it was too late to reconcile. And after she died, instead of making amends by supporting her daughter, you just continued the same pattern. Something that might have been shame crossed her face. I didn't know how to bridge that gap. And then you were achieving everything on your own, just like she would have done. Megan appeared at my shoulder, a silent show of support, and Aunt Patricia glanced between us, seeming to register for the first time that I wasn't alone or defenseless. The party was supposed to be a gesture, she said finally. A recognition. It was a performance. I corrected gently. For your friends and connections, not for me. If you had wanted to genuinely celebrate me,